Main purpose of the video that I just put out, Dead or Alive, the main purpose of that video really wasn't to discuss all the finite details of the bill, which I know many people would like me to have done. But the reason that I didn't take all the time to go through some of the finite portions of that bill is, number one, I took upon myself the assumption that many people were already familiarized with it, because if you're on YouTube, it's something that's being spoken about. And number two, what is not being talked about are the spiritual prophetic ramifications of the bill. And that's what I wanted to dedicate the greater balance of my time in that video actually discussing. All right, Section 1021, affirmation of authority of the armed forces of the United States to detain covered persons pursuant to the authorization for use of military force. And then it's really when you drop down to under I call it subsection 2 here, it says a person who is a part of or substantially supported Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, or associated forces that are engaged in hostilities against the United States or its coalition partners. This whole thing with associated forces, this can be defined as anything. They can be saying, they can say, hey, if you put out information that is telling the people of the United States of America that the government is evil, that the politicians of our country are not really for the good of their constituents. If you go out and start making statements and saying church and state's going to unite in the United States of America, we're going to be in a position where we'll not be able to buy nor sell unless we concede to abide by a false day of worship that will be institutionalized by the government. These things can be looked upon as inciting a spirit of terrorism and anarchy within the borders of the United States of America, which they already know that Al-Qaeda is responsible for. And so therefore they can say, hey, your activities are acting directly in association with Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. So you're an associated force, and therefore under Section 1021 of the NDAA, you are now a terrorist, and therefore you can be detained indefinitely, tortured, etc. Belligerence is, to conduct yourself in a fashion that's maybe aggressive or warlike. I mean, that's the dictionary definition of the word belligerent. But then who is to term what is an aggressive or warlike activity against the government? Because if you say that I put out, say for instance, I put out a video and I'm saying, the United States of America is the beast of Revelations chapter 13 and verse 11. And they're going to abjure the principles of our Constitution. They're going to overthrow our Bill of Rights. We're no longer not going to have freedom of conscience. It's going to unite both church and state in our country. And those who do not accept the national Sunday law will neither be able to buy nor sell. That can be deemed as being belligerent, as taking an act of aggression against the government, which they can say, oh, this is exciting a spirit of anarchy within the country, and therefore you and whatever other group associated with you that are teaching these same principles are now a terrorist threat to our country, because you are inciting the surging of radical ideologies and radical activities within the country. But this is not the truth. It's just the exercise of the freedom of speech. But you don't like the exercise of my freedom of speech because it's saying something that is not in line with your agenda, when it's in line with everything that the Bible says. I want to show you one more thing in this bill that many people did not realize, and it's I guess this is like subsection 3 under subsection C. I could be saying this a little bit wrong with my legal terminology, but nonetheless you can find it all in section 1021. And it says that these individuals that are found guilty under section 1021 that can be, that are liable for indefinite detention in military facilities, they can be transferred for trial by an alternative court or competent tribunal having lawful jurisdiction. Now, what do you mean? So anybody that's locked up under this, they can be transferred out of our country. and tried in some other court system, which locks right into the Illuminati agenda of having a world court system. And if you've been watching the different cases, a matter of fact, different forums that our Supreme Court justices have been engaged in over the course of the last few years, they have been defining our Constitution by international law. So the stage has already been set for U.S. citizens to be tried in a world court. And Section 1021 of the National Defense Administration Act actually makes provisions for U.S. citizens to be shipped out of our country and tried in some foreign court system. This NDAA, this law, effectually works as a gag order for Christians, true Bible-believing Christians who believe in keeping the commandments of God and the testimony of Jesus Christ, which is the spirit of prophecy, according to Revelations 12:17 and Revelations 19:10. This is a gag order by the devil himself to stop preaching the truth, or I'm going to make you into a terrorist and you'll get locked up, your family won't see you anymore, and I'll torture you. This is a gag order. Because this is the activities of the dragon, and most people are not recognizing this. They're just saying, hey, and they don't recognize it because they watch so much Dancing with the Stars and American Idol that they don't know anything else. I don't know if I shared with you the other day that for 2011, when they looked at what got the greatest amount of hits on Google, right? The greatest amount of hits, the greatest searches rather on Google. The person that was searched the most on Google was Justin Bieber and then Kim Kardashian. Okay? So this is ridiculous. Jesus doesn't even come in third place. So in other words, you have to be a promiscuous pedophile, right? You gotta be a promiscuous woman, or you have to have a YouTube channel to be popular amongst the people in the world right now. We're talking about the same Justin Bieber who I have pictures of showing the eye of Moloch, who's showing the eye of Horus, who's paying homage to Lucifer. He's getting, the billions of hits, or millions, hundreds of millions of hits, or searches on Google. And then the television shows that got searched the most were Dancing with Stars and American Idol. This is the type of stuff that not just the American public, but the world is feeding their minds with. And so when you bring the truth to them, they're like, oh no, this can't be. Of course you don't think it can be, because you've been eating so much Laffy Taffy that you become stupid. There is no semblance of reality that is bouncing around in your brain, because you've been completely benumbed by the media. You're benumbed. So this stuff sounds like Alice in Wonderland. And it is Alice in Wonderland, but it's the reality of Alice in Wonderland. And that's what we're living in.